Good morning, and welcome to the First Universalist Church of Rochester, where we are called to nurture the Spirit and to serve the community. It is so good to be here together this morning. I am Reverend Lane-Mairead Campbell. It is my privilege and my honor to serve this congregation as your settled minister. I use they/them pronouns. Joining leading worship is Greg Baum, our worship associate, using he/him pronouns. Dr. Brock Chesvold, our fabulous music director, on the keys this morning, using he/him pronouns. So glad you're here. Jack Cunningham is doing our tech assistant work, and we are so grateful he is back using he/him pronouns. And Karen Labraco is doing our online ministry team. Rev Michelle will be doing our story this morning, Rev Michelle Yates, using he, she, her pronouns. And we'll have some great things a little bit. Intriguing. If you are here for the first time, second time, third time, we especially welcome you. It is so good to have you here amongst us, whether you are joining us here online or in the sanctuary. There is a visitors form that you can fill out by scanning the QR code in your order of service or in your pews if you're here, or clicking the link in the chat if you're joining us online. We'd love to be able to offer you a welcome beyond just what we can offer you here during this service this morning. Please, everyone, feel free to join us after the service for coffee hour in the Clara Barton Lounge. For folks here visiting us, we have a UU and U session on the third Sunday of every month following the service in the back of the sanctuary and online. Time to ask questions and to learn a little bit more about this congregation. Our next one is happening on December 18th, so please join us for that. Before we have a moment to greet one another and to again fill this space with the beauty of all of your voices, we will take a moment to connect both our online worshiping community and our in-person worshiping community. So if those of you who are here in the sanctuary could turn towards our green camera over here in the corner, Jack, and offer a wave. Jack will pan around so we can offer a greeting to our online worshiping community. It's so good to have you all with us, joining us online this morning. Now, let us rise in body or in spirit to offer a greeting. And for folks online, please pop into the chat and offer a greeting this morning. Well, dear ones, in this season of Advent, I'm so sorry, we're going to have to pull you back. Brock, please start playing the hymn. I don't think we're ever going to get to the singing. We could just do this all morning, couldn't we? I feel like. This is, this morning we will sing hymn number 225, O Come, Emmanuel, in the spirit of Advent. My favorite Advent hymn, and Brock's too, which is just how it's going to go. So let us sing together, hymn number 225, O Come, Emmanuel. Please be seated.
Good morning. Good morning. As we gather here in this church for contemplation, reflection, for nourishment, for singing, at the same time, at this very hour, so many people all over our world are having to flee, to go underground, to operate in secrecy, just for survival. We hold our hearts this morning to those who have had to flee in order to find safety. We hold our hearts this morning, the damage done by asking people to keep secrets, by spreading shame. We hold in our hearts this morning our own experiences of escaping oppressive forces. We hold in the heart of this community a hope, a dream, and a prayer for all to feel safe and to live free from fear. In this hope, in this dream, in this spirit that wants freedom for us all, come, let us worship together. Will Tom Williams come forward and light the chalice? As Tom lights our chalice at First Universalist Church, you light your chalice at home. Will you join me in saying our chalice words in unison? May we be a people of welcome, here to grow in heart and mind and spirit, and may we reach out to serve our community. Please rise in body and or spirit and join me in your affirmation of faith, followed by our doxology. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve humanity in fellowship, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the source and meaning of life. Thus do we covenant with each other and with all. From all that dwell below the skies, let songs of hope and faith arise. Let peace, goodwill on earth be sung. Through every land, by every tongue. We are a generous people. This church is generous, and I know many of you give in our communities in many ways and have incredible impact. Let your generosity this morning in our offering go to support the good works of this church and all it does for Rochester, for each of us and for our community. You are invited to give online by scanning the QR code in your pews, or drop an offering in the offering basket for folks online. Please click and link in the chat to give to First Universalist Church. Thank you for your generosity.
You'll notice that there is a new addition to our sanctuary today. Just for today only, we brought down our own code quilt. Nancy Gady and Patty Goodwin created this quilt for a service that Patty Goodwin did with Verdict Robinson about code quilts. Now, these were quilts with patterns used by African Americans who were enslaved, which gave them cues, ideas, and sometimes even a map of how to follow and get to freedom. Our story today is about a code quilt being used by an enslaved family to follow the path to freedom. The story today is called A Patchwork Path, a quilt map to freedom by Betty Shroud, and illustrated by Erin Suzanne Bennett. Now, this book is based on a true story shared by African-American quilter Ozella McDaniel Williams, as it had been passed down orally from her grandmother, Hannah. The church in the story is a known stop on the Underground Railroad, and it still stands today. And you can see some of the patterns in the story you can also see on our quilt. My name is Hannah. I was a slave on a Georgia plantation. The year I turned 10, Mama taught me to make a special quilt. But Mama wanted me to learn more than just how to sew. While we stitched, she told me a secret. Each pattern holds a special meaning, Mama whispered. Hannah, this quilt will show you everything you need to know to run to freedom. Soon after, Master sold my sister, Mary, to a far-off plantation, and Mama passed away. Papa said that it was her heart that broke. Sometimes when I missed Mama and Mary so hard, my own heart was close to splitting. I remembered Mama's words. The monkey wrench turns the wagon wheel toward Canada on a bear's path trail to the crossroads. Once they got to the crossroads, they dug a log cabin onto the ground. Shoefly told them to dress up in cotton and satin bow ties to go to the cathedral church to get married and exchange double rings. Flying geese stay on the drunkard's path and follow the stars. That was the quilt code. One day in spring, Papa told me to air out Mama's monkey wrench quilt. This is an important part of the story. It was spring. The pattern warns the others that you and I will be leaving, that we are gathering our tools to go. It will be a long and difficult journey. But remember, Mama is up in heaven watching over us. Tomorrow night, storms will come and we'll run. So get your quilt, tie the end corners together, and slip a little bread inside. I shook with excitement, but wished Mary were here with us. I wondered what it was like where she lived now. Papa was a wagon driver. When he drove the mules to other plantations, he kept his eyes open, going and coming for miles and miles around. He memorized roads, streams, and dark woods. Papa knew where runaway slaves could hide. The night before we left, Papa tried to calm me. I touched a finger to the wagon wheel quilt square. I knew it meant we were packing things for a journey, as though we were loading a wagon. But there would be no wagon. We would have to run. We stepped out. We stepped out into the worst rainstorm I'd ever seen. Papa, do we have to leave now? I asked. Yes, the dogs won't be able to follow our scent. No work in the fields tomorrow, so Master won't miss us. In the drenching rain, he led me through the dark woods. I shivered from the cold and wet. I thought I heard a dog bark and a stick snap. My stomach tightened. Would they catch us? Would they take us back? What then? Early the next morning, we came to a church at the edge of town. With a storm like this, the members here will be expecting runaway slaves, Papa said as we crept inside. We hid in a space beneath the floor. Daylight slanted through the holes cut in wooden planks. That cross shape, Daddy said, is from Africa. It means life, death, and rebirth. I prayed that we would be reborn as free people in Canada. The soft voices of our protectors drifted down to us as we waited for nightfall. Papa's lantern cast strange shadows on the walls of the tunnel that led from the church to the river. Papa told me that pirates had made the tunnels, and that's why they built the church here. We followed the riverbed upstream. The cold water soaked my shoes. My toes felt like icy hard pebbles. Sometimes Papa climbed the bluff to look for horsemen with dogs and whips. My knees ached. How far was Canada anyway? Just as the sun rose, a flock of geese. We saw them high above. They are flying north, said Papa. We will follow them. We walked night after night and hid during the day. I had never been off the plantation or seen anything but field or marsh. I could not believe my eyes when we climbed into the mountains and saw the view. Surely we could see Canada from there, but Papa shook his head. No, Hannah, we're still a far way off. A little further on, I found the way. Look, Papa, there it is. There are bear tracks, like on my quilt. We followed the bear's paw trail to the valley below. I hoped we wouldn't catch up to the bears, but the track led us to water and an empty, safe cave to sleep in. Mama's quilt patterns were guiding us. Sometimes we had something to eat, and sometimes we went hungry. Spring turned to summer, and even now the nights were warm now. We kept walking in a zigzag pattern, like the drunkard's patch on our quilt. I remembered Mama told me that bad luck follows a straight line. I knew the zigzag pattern would make it harder for Master's men to follow our trail, too. Papa pointed to the shoe fly pattern on my quilt. He told me that if anyone came after us, we should scatter like flies. Later, we could meet up at the spot where we separated. That way, they only catch one of us, or maybe none. If I get caught, Hannah, you just keep going. One lucky day, we found a safe house. Papa knew to look for a lantern glowing in the window. The people who live here will help us, he said. How wonderful to get clean clothes and sleep on a real bed for the first time in months. Hot bread and baked pork never tasted so fine. We washed ourselves and slept all day and all night. Next morning, Goodman and his wife told us that they were Quakers. They believed slavery was wrong, and they said they would help us as much as they could. The next day, they told us what lay ahead on our way to a place called Cleveland, to the crossroad. I listened close. 2 days later, the man carried us northward for miles as we lay hidden at the bottom of his wagon, covered by blankets and straw. When night fell, we struck out walking again. I felt rested and ready to go get freedom, though it was still a long way off. The nights grew longer and colder by the time we reached a great stretch of water that looked like an ocean. Our Quaker friends told us it was Lake Erie. Freedom is on the other side, Papa said. But how will we ever get across? I asked. Somebody will look for this sign, Papa said as he drew a log cabin quilt pattern into the sand near the shore. We hid in a nearby graveyard and waited. A free black man saw our sign and looked around for us. We rushed out of hiding, and the man took us to a big cave that looked like a cathedral. He gave us clean clothes. I got a crisp new bonnet to wear. As Papa tied the bow, I thought, the bow tie square on my quilt. We dressed up like we were going to church. With our new clothes, we looked like we were free. The man told us, you've always been free on the inside, and soon you'll be free on the outside, too. That night, Papa rang a small bell that the man had given him. We waited for a signal, a sign. We heard a faint chime as somebody rang back. Double rings. A riverboat captain took us on his boat, and we set off across the water. The North Star shone brightly in the night sky. We had followed the stars to freedom. As dawn spread pink across the water, I saw Canada. It was autumn now, and the leaves, with their red and gold leaves, looked like they were on fire. What a beautiful place. We felt truly reborn. I spent our first winter making a new quilt. using pieces of cloth from our old slave clothes and some new fabric too. A big one this time, with all the patterns of the quilt code, just like Mama taught me. I left one square empty because I missed my sister. When Mary is with us again, I'll finish the quilt. Until then, I'll pray for her and dream about all of us being free. Thank you. And thank you so much to Patty and Nancy and Vertus for our own code quilt that hangs at the second floor at the top of the stairs outside of Reverend Mayread's office. As is our tradition on the second Sunday of the month, we do our food in gathering. We collect food and finances for the food cupboard on Nestor Street. If you have not yet brought forward your food, if you want to do that now, or raise your hand that one of our ushers can come and grab it from you. There is also a box here for money or checks for the Nestor Street Community Cupboard. And of course, they can get great deals, especially this time of year, and always to get more food or whatever it is that they need for the people who they serve. Thank you so much for showing your care and our faith in what we do.
I want to invite you now into this reverent time of sharing the joys and the sorrows of our gathered community. If you would like to, you can place a hand over your heart to be able to listen from this heart-centered place, connecting us all together in the spirit of our hearts beating as one, both online and in person. As Greg places stones into a bowl, I will read aloud the joys and the sorrows of our gathered community. All online are also invited to share your joys and sorrows in the chat this morning. We hold a sorrow today from Michael Scott, mourning the loss of local and regional labor leader Bruce Popper, who died 2 weeks ago. A celebration of his life will be today at 1 p.m. at the Memorial Art Gallery. We share a joy this morning from Dolores DeLumba, who is looking forward to visits from sons, grandson, great-granddaughter with significant others for Christmas Eve, which also happens to be your birthday, doesn't it, Dolores? Just going to share the joy of that personally. A sorrow this morning from Karen Labraco. Diana Dudley, longtime member of Pullman Memorial UU Church, Unitarian Universalist Church in Albion, has died. Diana was a congregational treasurer for many years, as well as a musician and a strong Universalist supporter. Today at 2 p.m., there will be a memorial service to honor her at Pullman, and we are just holding the Pullman congregation in our hearts and also all those who knew and loved Diana. We share a sorrow this morning from Lois and Greg Baum. Our dear Armand Brunette passed away at 8 p.m. on Friday, December 9th. His health took a sudden and drastic turn for the worse over this past week, starting with emergency surgery Tuesday at Strong Hospital. From there, he developed septic shock. By Friday evening, he was gone. All three of his children have been by his side for the duration: Vicky, Lisa, and Mike, holding you, Lois, and Greg in our hearts, and also all those who knew Armand and loved him. We'll drop one stone into the bowl for all of the joys shared by our online community. And we'll drop one stone into the bowl for all the sorrows shared by our online community. And let us drop one final stone into the bowl to represent all of the joys and the sorrows left unspoken in the silent sanctuaries of our hearts. May all be held in the heart of love. I'll invite you now into this time of meditation with me. Let us just pause and unplug for a moment from the hectic busyness of this season. Allow hands to drop from keyboards to nestle softly in your lap. Allow shoulders to drop from ears. You can even sort of roll them back down a little bit. Allow eyes and face to rest and relax. Let the muscles around your eyes, in your forehead, around your mouth, release tension, relax. Allow the breath to guide us. Let us breathe deep and slow in and out, letting the belly rise and fall, filling yourself with your breath. Breathing in and holding your breath in longer at the top of your breathing, and releasing it full and slow, fully out of your body. We are slowing down here. Intentional time out of time, a silence soon to come, a moment to practice the art of bringing attention to our breath. As you breathe in again, bring to your mind's eye a compassionate energy, filling your lungs, your belly, your body. As you breathe out, release the to-do list, the worries, the negative thoughts about yourself, release judgment and the drive to keep going from one thing to the next. Let us breathe this way for a few deep breaths together. One more time, breathing in, compassionate love. Breathing out, the worry, the to-do, the judgment. As your breathing returns to its regular pace, we share silence together. A moment to reflect, a moment to pause, a moment to slow down, a moment to just be. Let us share in the gift of this silence together. as we honor the voice still and small within each of us. Let us sing our hymn of contemplation. This morning we will sing it twice through. Hymn number 391, Voice Still and Small. Do I stay or do I go? Question many of us have sat with, I imagine, over the course of our lifetimes. A question that perhaps has come from the still, small voice within you. Do I stay or do I go? Our leaving dependent upon the maps that have been laid out for us in the patterns of relationship, in the ways our ancestors and elders have remained or left, in the healing we have had to do, in the acceptance we have reached for. It could have been that you were faced with the truth of a situation that brought discomfort, or perhaps just plain honesty. It could have been that you were treated poorly by those who had power over you and by those who were closest to you, that you allowed in. It could have been that leaving looked like departing from the ways you had always done things, from the ways people expected you to be. It could have been that you decided to stay because leaving was not available to you, or you just didn't want to. It is worth reflection on the choice to remain or to leave. Do I stay or do I go? The part of the story of the birth of Jesus that I want to invite us to explore in the Advent light of our theme of underground is what transpired after his birth. In the accounting of his life as told by Matthew, in that telling, Mary and Joseph, his parents, having just had a baby born whose life was foretold to be a very big deal, were faced with a decision. See, Herod, local political leader, had heard of this baby being born and was threatened by the power and the possibility of such a prophet. He had sent the 3 wise men to check in on Jesus and to report back in order which the 3 of them had defied, and to which he responded with an order to have all the boys in Bethlehem below the age of 2 killed. Faced with this reality, Mary and Joseph made the decision to flee to Nazareth, where they could raise this child and hope to protect his life long enough for him to fulfill his prophecy. I imagine this little family of 3 leaving under the night sky, having to conceal their own identities. I imagine them following the maps of oral tradition and imagery, figuring out upon whom they could rely for their own safety, who could be trusted along the way to house them without ratting them out. What if the answer was no one, and they just traveled, the 3 of them, keeping safe in the woods or in their own found shelters? The ancient story is not too old to those of us who have heard stories similar to the one Reverend Michelle shared this morning. These stories are not too old to those of us who have heard stories of refugees and immigrants in the present day having to flee for the safety of their lives and for the promise of a better life for their children. These stories are very present to those of us who have had the personal experience of being immigrants and refugees. And this ancient story is not so ancient when we think of the many families who have made decisions whether to stay or go under threats of domestic violence, abuse, addiction, or threats so close to home they reside in one's home. Those of us who have made the decision to stay or to go know this story all too well, know the consequences of both paths, have had to weigh them for ourselves. Do I stay or do I go? The answer is not so easy, though it may appear so to some who might not be familiar with the nuance. To remain or to leave can be the toughest decision we have made in our lifetimes. And it is not just in the leaving that we get free. See, Mary and Joseph had the comfort of the inn and the comfort of community surrounding them. They had family in Bethlehem. They had folks to support them, yet who could not protect them from the oppressive forces of empire. To stay and to keep their child secret was certainly an option that they likely had to weigh with the life they dreamed for this little one. Could this baby grow to be the person he was born to be if we have to keep him a secret? Would we be the parents we hope to be if we always had to watch our backs? If we had to remain underground in some way, if we had to hide? They made the decision to leave, likely out of the hope and the promise of safety and a life for their child. At least that's the way I imagine it. Yet I cannot look to the modern day examples of this story, nor read this story in a way that villainizes the decision to stay. I cannot hold that the decision to stay is always, every time, the worst decision. When to leave means losing the support of one's family and community, being cut off from the people you have known and loved, who know and love you, it is so hard to leave. It is so hard to make the decision and stay and say, this life is not for me. This relationship is not for me. This abuse is not for me. This oppressive political power is not for me. This job is not for me. This way of being no longer serves me. I think we hold up these stories from the past to valorize the courage it takes to leave, and I honor that courage this morning. I honor the fear people have had to face when sitting with the question, do I stay or do I go? I honor those who have survived in the leaving. And I also invite us to honor those who have survived in the staying. Those who have made hard decisions, who maybe even chose to remain at great cost to themselves. So often when stories of domestic violence, abuse, sexual assault, or myriad other continued abuses of power come to our attention, the thought turns to, why didn't that person just leave? Why did they choose to stay for so long? I know I have asked it myself. I imagine many of us have asked that question and even been asked that question by those who care about you. It is a question that comes out of concern for sure, and also has the impact to judge and further isolate, to blame and shame someone who is and was doing the best they could with what was available to them at the time. To ask why someone hesitated to leave or to ask why someone stayed for so long puts the onus on them rather than challenging the people who abuse. Those whose maps in life have likely been passed on by generations and who hold power in ways that diminish the spirits of others. In this way, we remain in the safe place of believing that the decision to leave an abusive situation, a situation that is not good for you or your well-being, is an easy one. We keep things simple. We refuse to see the hard parts of choosing to leave and the ways our systems of maintaining safety are not adequate to support those who must flee abuse, who must flee oppressive control. I am not interested this morning in letting Herod off the hook here. I don't think any of us are. I'm not interested in seeing him as a single individual who operated outside of relationship with power and control and political community. I am interested in bringing this story into our present day lives, in inviting us to reflect on where we ourselves have confronted the Herods of our time and have had to discern whether to stay or go. What gives someone the strength to decide to leave? What helps people decide they can go? The support and safety of those around them, offering help, offering a listening presence, offering connection. Those who are facing oppressive systems and situations are too often isolated, are too often judged and told they cannot tell anyone about what they are experiencing under threat of more violence or even death. To have a community of support or even a few people can make the difference in someone's life. We know this. It is the main reason we are here this morning. It is the main reason that many of us keep coming back again and again here to this community. We know that to be known by others, to find people we can trust and be honest with, this is the healing stuff of life and living. We know that connection to other human beings and a connection with spirit, with the divine. This is how we develop our sense of values, our integrity, or we discern how our actions can be in alignment with what we believe. Mary knew she was being carried and cared for by the divine. An angel came and told her as much a couple of times. Do not be afraid. This is likely a piece of how she and Joseph knew they would be safe to go, to travel, to flee in an underground way to ensure the safety of their newborn baby. In the story Reverend Michelle shared this morning, the people who were able to make their way to freedom knew because their maps were written into the stars. Because there were people who had traveled the way before them. Because they believed in a divine force that was guiding them towards freedom. The maps left to us to find the spirit, to find the stories of the ancestors, to remember where those in our lineage have had to flee and survived. This is what we can draw upon in the moments when we know it is time to leave, when we know we have to make the decision to go. Do I stay or do I go? A question in this Advent season and in this season of our lives. I wonder what you are thinking of leaving. I wonder where you are committed to staying. I wonder what pulls you towards somewhere, something, some state of being that is different. And I wonder to what, to whom, to where you maintain a resolve to remain, to stay. In this discernment, in this inward listening season, may you find in your hearts and in this community the maps you need to tell you where to be and how to be next. May you find practices of spirit that honor the deep discernment that decisions like these require. May you find in the old ancient stories the guidance you seek for what you need to leave and where you must stay. Amen. Blessed be, and may it be so. As we honor the maps that have been laid out before us by the ancient stories, and as we sing but the 2 Advent hymns available in our Unitarian Universalist hymnal, not really a big UU season, but here we are. We'll sing hymn number 226, People Look East. So please rise, a joyful hymn. So please rise in body or in spirit and let us sing. Please remain standing as we extinguish our chalice flame this morning. Let us read together the words printed on the screen and in your order of service. We extinguish this flame, but we keep its light in our hearts with its message of love and justice, taking it outside these walls to the world we live in until we are together again. Thank you, Craig. Dear ones, I'll invite you again to place a hand over your heart wherever you are, here in this space, online in your homes, and just take a look around at who you are here with together today. Who is here along this journey with you? Who are the folks to whom you are connected? Dear ones, in this waiting season, in this Advent season, I wish you more stillness. I wish you moments to sit with the question, do I stay or do I go? I wish you time to be with that still small voice within. May the love felt here in this space enter your heart. And from that place, may you go and be love to whomever you meet until we are together again. Amen. Blessed be, and may it be so.